on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of CryptoZombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having an awesome start to your weekend. Bitcoin kind of just hanging around the same levels that we were yesterday, although we have seen that ever since the Bart Simpson pattern, we have been going up slightly. However, it has been brought to my attention that we have printed a number 9 on the TD sequential. Now, if you're not familiar with what this is, you'll notice some traders like Tone Vase using this a lot. Well, a 9 basically suggests that we're due for a reversal and that Bitcoin would be looking for a massive correction to the downside. I want to talk about this specifically today, whether or not we should be worried about this. I also want to discuss something that's going on right now potentially with the Bitcoin difficulty adjustment for the miners. Now, keep in mind, what we're going to talk about today has only happened 2 times before in Bitcoin's history, and if it does happen again, well, it could potentially signal the opposite of what this TD sequential is telling us. So I want to talk about that. I also want to go into the fact that we have Bitcoin open interest absolutely skyrocketing at the moment. We have the calls outperforming the puts, which means that most traders are actually bullish on Bitcoin. I also want to talk about the fact that Grayscale Bitcoin Trust has been buying more Bitcoin than has even been coming out from the miners. Where are they getting the capital for this? Who are they buying the Bitcoin from, and who is demanding it? I'd want to talk about that. And also we're going to discuss Adam Back's $300,000 Bitcoin prediction, as well as the fact that our good old buddy Mark Cuban finally admits that Bitcoin is a store of value. So we're going to go into all that today. If that sounds good to you, you know what to do. If you're not subscribed, definitely consider it. And without further ado, let's dive directly into the charts. So still looking relatively, good as far as the fact that we are sitting above most of these major resistances. I've talked about this time and time again. You can see right here, we really need Bitcoin to break out above the $9,800 level. That would get us outside of this blue box territory that we've been bouncing around in pretty much for years now. This is where Bitcoin has been accumulating the most. Now, I do want to talk about the fact that we do sort of have this new pattern that's sort of come up in the CME charts. You can see right here, we have started to have a bit of a pullback. Now, I would anticipate that we would sort of come down and retest the top of this previous resistance as support. So even if Bitcoin was to come down to some of these levels, you could even see Bitcoin retest the $9,300 level. I would imagine that Bitcoin would have a bounce back at that point. If we don't, well, then maybe the TD sequential is right and we are looking for a massive correction. Before we talk about the bearish, let's talk about the bullish. We are sitting on top of the previous resistance as support. We do have a CME gap all the way up at around $11,900. Somebody asked me yesterday in the comments, what is the significance of these gaps? To be completely honest with you, it's probably just a self-fulfilling prophecy. There really is no magical reason why these gaps get filled, but some people say, well, traders miss the opportunities on the weekend, so they try to bring the price back to its previous levels. I don't really know the answer, guys, but all I can tell you is basically every single time we have a gap, the gap gets closed. So yes, we do have one up at around 11,900. We're also holding very well above the 21 exponential on the weekly. We are looking for these double golden crosses, these 3 moving averages, the 2 lowers moving over the higher right here. Okay, so that is bullish. Also, let's talk about it. So we have the 9 right over here on the TD sequential. Now, let me actually just explain to you guys what this is. Basically, you can see that the TD sequential serves the purpose of identifying a price point where an uptrend or downtrend exhausts itself and reverses. The first phase of a TD sequential starts with the setup and is completed by a 9. Well, we just got the 9, so that should mean that's it. Bitcoin's pumped. It's exhausted. We need to retest some of these lower levels, right? Well, it's also at the point where the sequential starts a possible second phase, the TD countdown, and that's completed with a 13 count. And once that's recorded, that also says that price could pause and have a severe reversal. Well, before we even go any farther, let me just show you right now that we actually printed a 9 way back here right before the massive blast off to 14K. You can see right when we were coming out of the bottom in March right here. Let me actually zoom in so you guys could see. We put in an 8, a 9. That would have signaled a reversal, but what did Bitcoin do? It actually continued to pump all the way up to $14,000, okay? Now you can see right here, we did put in 8, and we did have a reversal from the downtrend pump to the uptrend. But I just wanted to point out that just because we're putting in a 9 right now doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have a reversal. These are just indicators, right? They're just to sort of give us an idea of the direction that Bitcoin's price is moving. Look, take this for example. George Trader pointed this out. He said, "I'm sorry, lads, but this looks horrible. More downside in my opinion." Now, if you were having a look at this chart, would you say to yourself that we would be falling to the downside? Well, that is one possible scenario.
Got it! Got it!
We have been in a continuous uptrend, and we have been putting in higher lows, and actually even this previous pullback was a smaller higher high. Now, yes, you could say this is a bit of a double top. We are hitting massive resistance. I'm not saying that we can't have a pullback, but what I am saying is that once Bitcoin does break these levels for good, you could definitely kiss these lower prices goodbye. So look, between you and I, if we do have one more pullback, maybe down to the low 8,000s or even 7,200 at that massive VPVR range, that to me would be the buying opportunity of a lifetime, because once we break above this resistance, this red line right here, you might be just basically kissing these lower prices goodbye. Oh, and not to mention the fact that pretty much by June 12th, the latest, we're looking for a massive Bitcoin move. And not to mention the fact that once Bitcoin does get above this VPVR right here at around $10,200, our next level of possible accumulation or resistance on VPVR is $11,800, right where we have the CME futures gap. Also want to just point out, this is from Cold-Blooded Schiller. He points out a similarity between right here when Bitcoin was originally going into this divergence into the correction where we had a 17% correction. We just had an 18% down here, and this is using the Renko bars, okay? This is basically just a different way of looking at the candles. You have Heiken Ashi, regular, Renko, okay? And he points out that after that move, Bitcoin had a 80% pump to the upside. So the question is, are we looking for that move as well? Well, Arthur Hayes pointed out, what do you think we're going to be doing? And Mike Novogratz says, higher, I'll bet you dinner on it. So you let me know what you think, but guys, Bitcoin derivatives interest is putting in fast growth this quarter. CME Group is leading the way, and according to data from the resource monitor Skew, they basically said that you've seen drastic increase in shares for open interest, and as of June 4th, open interest was 256 million, which is only $3 million short of their all-time highs. And just to put that into perspective, in 2019, in the beginning, CME was recording only $2 million in open interest. 2 million in the beginning of 2019, 256 million today. Tell me that that is not bullish, guys. And also, there are a lot of traders that are very excited about the price of Bitcoin, because you can actually see right here that the put to call ratio is actually leaning toward the calls, and calls essentially means that option traders are bullish versus puts, which means that they are bearish. Not to mention the fact that you can see right here, thank you for putting this together from Kevin Rook, another massive week for Grayscale. Grayscale added 9,503 Bitcoin to their trust. Here's the catch, only 6,863 Bitcoin had been mined. Where are they getting this Bitcoin from? Well, they might be doing trades OTC with just large holders and things like that, but everyone is saying, where's this demand coming from? Well, this is the kicker, guys. The capital that comes into Grayscale's trust comes from the clients. Grayscale, essentially, they're just a custody, right? They just hold it for their clients, so their clients don't have to deal with private keys and all that other stuff. Not that I recommend that. You should always keep your crypto on a ledger. I don't recommend you keeping your crypto on exchanges, but hey, if you want to use Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, more power to you. But my point being is that this money is not coming out of thin air. This is coming from retail demand. Unlike some of the institutional demand that we've seen right here, this is actually retail. And I want to point out what Adam Back said from Blockstream. He basically says that if we look at what's been going on in the economy with all of this money printing, he says that this is certainly going to drive even more retail investors towards Bitcoin. Hello, we're already seeing the demand right here. And he says that this could potentially drive the price to $300,000 within a few years. He actually had an interview with Bloomberg He said it might not require additional institutional adoption because the current environment is causing more individuals to think about hedging and retaining value where there's lots of money printing in the world. He cited a number of trends that are working in Bitcoin's favor, including more people working from home, as well as overvalued bonds and real estate investments. He says it's causing people to think about the value of the money, and they are looking for ways to preserve it. It's difficult right now to really yield anything on your investments, right? He said that investors, for example, he was talking about the Goldman Sachs, saying that Bitcoin, you shouldn't get involved in it, whatever. He's saying that these big players, they don't understand the value of Bitcoin. Well, either they don't understand, or let's be honest, they're probably hoarding a ton of it in the background while they're telling everybody else not to buy. And then once their bags are filled, I'm sure they'll send it to the moon, right? But that being said, he says you have a major sophisticated market player like Goldman Sachs with such an unclear understanding of Bitcoin's value. To me, that indicates that there is still a lot of headroom for price appreciation and market adoption. And he says this is a great money-making opportunity for everyone already in the space. That means people like you, people like me, right? We're actually ahead of the curve. You see, in traditional markets, usually it's the institutions that get in first, right? They get to get into all the, funding rounds before the public, and then they have the best opportunities to make the most money. Whereas in Bitcoin's situation, we actually got in before the institution. So we actually have the upper hand, right? And I also want to point out an analysis of what's going on right now with Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners, because there's something that could potentially happen. You can see right here, the next difficulty estimated adjustment is negative 7.14%. This would be 3 negative adjustments for the Bitcoin minor adjustment. Now, let me just point something out right now. Following its latest adjustment on June 4th reveals key similarities to when Bitcoin traded around its $3,000 levels, the $3,100 level being the bottom of the bear market, essentially, right? So basically they say that this week, difficulty adjusting down by 9.3%. That followed a downshift of 2 weeks previously of -6 in the adjustment ratio going down. And they say that with the exception of December 2018, the only other occasion was the record 8 consecutive downward adjustments from 2011. So this has only happened 2 times before. If this does happen a third time, we have seen that it basically signaled kind of the bottom once again. So we'll have to keep our eyes on whether that difficulty adjustment happens. But just pointing out what Whale Panda had said, and this is actually from May 31st. This isn't a brand new tweet, but he says 3 weeks after the Bitcoin halving, the mempool is almost empty again. 1 sat transactions confirming no mining death spiral. Even though we lost nearly 50% of the hash rate, it's bouncing back. Next difficulty adjustment down less than 10%. Bitcoin working exactly like it was designed to do. And this is the beauty of Bitcoin. We have the adjustment, right? We have the hash rate, right? These are all, if you haven't looked it up, I don't have the book on me right now. But you definitely need to, number one, read the Bitcoin Standard to understand why Bitcoin is so amazing. And another thing too is if you haven't read the Bitcoin white paper, just read it. It's 8 pages. It's definitely worth a look, guys. Beautiful protocol, in my opinion. And I just want to end on the fact that we did have Preston Pish having this giant, basically he was talking about universal basic income, talking about all of the unrest right now, the money printer go burr, all that, right? And we actually did have, where is it? I highlighted it down here. Yeah, Mark Cuban, he hopped in and he said, you got it right up until the Bitcoin part. Under an all Bitcoin system, how does the inflation of Bitcoin from supply and demand impact those without assets and those trying to acquire Bitcoin? How will markets be made for goods, services, etc.? He says, Mark, I appreciate you taking the time to read this post. The great thing about a market is the price will decide who's right and wrong. When the Bitcoin price passes through the previous all-time high of 20,000 by the end of January 2021, I'll answer your call. He also says down here, you're right. He will. Matt Odell says Mark will figure it out. It's just a matter of at what price level. What does the community think? He says Mark figures out Bitcoin at, and what do you guys think? $15,000, $20,000, $50,000, or finally $100,000. Mark Cuban comes around to Bitcoin. But scrolling down here, he does actually say it can be a store of value. And then he goes on to say about the conversation started about the challenges of the Federal Reserve System. But he finally does admit that Bitcoin can be a store of value. There you go. Look, beggars can't be choosers, right? You got to take it. Mark Cuban finally admits that Bitcoin is a store of value. And that is it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I do this every single day. We do give away a Ledger Nano S every single Monday. Drop a comment on any video throughout the course of the week, and you are eligible. It is the weekend. Things could get crazy. Be safe out there. We might put in a CME futures gap, but yeah. Guys, we're getting close to the point. I think within like the next few days, we're really getting to the end of that wedge, and yeah, we're going to find out whether the bulls or the bears were right. It has been an excellent run. Bitcoin to the moon long term, short term, things could get crazy. Thank you for joining the show. You guys rock. You're the reason that I do this every day. My name is K-Dub. This is CryptoZombie. Join the free Telegram if you want. That's it for me. That's enough. That's it. Until next time, stay crypto. Enjoy your weekend, and of course, peace out.